views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Are you ready to stop stress, anxiety, and low self-esteem from ruining your life? Join award-winning author and breakthrough expert Dr. Friedemann Schaub for Empowerment Radio as he addresses some of the most difficult challenges in our day-to-day lives. Find out how you can use the power of your mind to overcome self-sabotaging patterns and build a solid foundation of confidence and self-respect. Learn cutting-edge tools to switch out of survival mode and approach every day with greater ease, joy, and purpose. Here is your host on Empowerment Radio, Dr. Friedemann Schaub.
Welcome to Empowerment Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Friedemann, and we are talking about a subject that can be hard and sometimes heavy for many of us. And the subject is about grief. Now, the person I invited today has been helping people through a very specific kind of grief, which is the grief of losing your best friend. And I'm talking about the best friend who is furry, has a tail, 4 legs, and just adores you and loves you unconditionally. My special guest is a pet grief coach, helping people through overcome their grieving when it comes to losing their beloved animal. Now, not anyone or everyone has dealt with pet grief, and many people may just feel like, I never had pet grief because I don't like pets. Still, stay tuned, because a lot what is something she will share today about grief and how to deal with grief is also applicable in general when we are losing a loved one. So it's certainly something that can help anyone who has been dealing with grief, or maybe embracing the idea that, well, sooner or later, I will need to deal with loss and saying goodbye to someone I really care and love. Now, when I was about, 14 years old, we had a dog named Sid. And I mentioned this because grief is something so powerful that it can even overwhelm the seemingly strongest and those that are most in control of us. And it was in this case my father, because this dog was a dog that was like any other dog we ever had. We used to have German Shepherds when I grew up, and he was the last one we had. And he was anything but a well-behaved dog. He was pretty neurotic. He was basically tossed around from one family to the next and never really had a settled home. So when he was 5 or 6 years old, my dad was asked by one of his patients if he would take him in. And my dad, who was a sucker for animals, definitely said, yes, I will do that, because he felt sorry for this dog that apparently really never had that sense of being at home or feeling that there's a stable environment for him. And it took our dog Sid a long time to feel at home, because every time we took him somewhere, just for a walk in the car, he thought, at least it felt to us, that we are giving him away again. He panicked. He was scared. He didn't want to go in the car. And he had other, kind of idiosyncrasies that we learned to deal with, that we learned to embrace. But his anxiety and this, kind of sad gaze on his face, in his eyes, never really disappeared completely, no matter how much we loved him and cared for him and supported him. And maybe that's the reason why my father really embraced him so much, because he was really needing our love and support. So when he was 12 or 13 years old and he just couldn't move anymore, his hind legs couldn't really lift him up anymore, my father decided to euthanize him. And since he was a doctor, he did it himself. And I never forget how hard it was for my dad to do that. My dad, who seemed to be always in a mixture of being in control or being angry, was just like a little puddle. He was so sad. Tears were running down his cheeks, and I didn't see my dad very often crying. In fact, maybe only twice in my life. There, when he had to give this dog the final injection, and the dog couldn't even really acknowledge that he was picked. And then when the dog took his final breath, my dad really broke down. And something inside of him opened up. And I think I will always be grateful for Sid, for having opened up my dad's wall around his heart, just to let some of the grief and the sadness that he had been dealing with for a long time out in that process. Now, unfortunately, my dad wasn't necessarily someone who was really processing the grief very much. So at some point, he just shut back down. But that brief moment, I will always be grateful for. And so I want to talk today with my special guest about that grief and how we deal with grief and what we can do to make grief easier for us, especially when it comes to something like a animal that we love, that we care for, that we have given so much to, and at the end, we always know the animal probably gonna die before us. It's just one of those things we are aware of. We will probably live longer than this animal. So I want to welcome Judy to the call, and thank you so much for being here. And why don't you introduce yourself? Judy Helm, Wright. What are you doing, and how come that you became a pet grief coach?
Well, thank you for inviting me to come on. I'm in Montana. You're in France. So
I'm in
it's
France, right.
a continent away. And isn't this amazing? I love it. It's so much fun. Well, my husband and I own a company called Animal Human Connection. Mm. And as part of that, we have a sub company called Naughty Paws, which makes toys for dogs. And they're made by veterans. And then some of the proceeds go to disabled veterans. So it's a good. The other one that we use, the other charity we use is Dogs on Deployment. So we give a portion of those proceeds to that. I'm an author. I've written 23 books, and they're up on Amazon. And but of those 23 books, my number one seller by far, and sometimes 4-1, because most of my books are parenting. And so my very best seller is the book, I Lost My Best Friend Today, Dealing with the Loss of a Beloved Pet. And it's just full of stories, fun stories about the memories, just like your memory of Sid. This book is just full of those. Excuse me. I want to say one thing. When you, in the introduction, you were saying some of you may have never had a pet or are not sympathetic towards pets. And that's actually one of the reasons why I do pet grief coaching, is because people need a safe place to cry. And in the workplace, often, maybe that pet was their child, and when the pet dies, we go through intense grieving, and a lot of people don't understand. They say, "Get over it. It was a cat. Come on, it wasn't like you lost your child. You know, at what point are you going to stop mourning about that stupid animal?" Well, in reality, that animal is very often our very best friend. It's our confidant. Many people who don't have a partner will tell their dog stories or say, I got to tell you what happened at work today, or I'm really worried about this. So that dog becomes their confidant, their holder of secrets. And the dog or cat, well, cats are kind of a breed of their own, aren't they? But dogs just love you unconditionally. And so when you come home and they'll just meet you at the door with their tail wagging, they don't care whether you got a raise. They don't care whether you are worried about something. They just love you unconditionally. And so when you mentioned in the introduction about some people may not have gone through this, I think part of what you and I need to do today is really help them to be a witness to this mourning of their coworkers or their neighbors or their family, and acknowledge that grief sometimes is deeper than when they've lost a human thing. I hear so often, what's wrong with me? I grieved more when my German Shepherd died than I did when my parents died. My grief is deeper than it was. And a couple of things happen. One is because of that unconditional love. There were no strings attached with Sid. He just loved you. He just loved you and trusted you. But he remembered all of those things, but he really trusted you. A lot of times relationships with humans carry strings. I will love you if you win the soccer game. Or, it isn't said, I'll love you, but it's an unspoken thing. I'll love you if you get into college. I'll love you if you choose a good career. But with pups, with dogs, it's just unconditional love. And so I can answer any questions, anything that you need to know about grieving, loss. Another one of my best-selling books is for children, and it's called I Miss You, Do Pets Go to Heaven? And that's a real good children's book.
Well, that's definitely something we want to also address because, one of the questions I have for you is how do you tell a child that the cat passed or the dog passed or the bird passed and how to explain it in a way that they can process through their grieving. But we will do this after the break, so stay tuned.
Did you know that all of the shows on the Transformation Radio Network are available as podcasts to stream or download?
Really?
Check us out. Go to transformationradio.fm. We have business shows, spiritual shows, energy healing shows, and pretty much everything in between. Something for everyone, guaranteed to inspire, educate, and transform. We are transforming the world, one listener at a time.
Are you done being afraid to jump into the life that's waiting for you? Are you ready for a real shift? I invite you to tune in every Tuesday with me, Tracy L., on the Tracy L. Clark Show, where we will teach you how to live your extraordinary life. At 8 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio, where I will provide the tools and the steps needed to help you transcend perceived limitations and move forward with an extraordinary life. For more information, visit me at tracylclark.com.
Ignite your inner magic on Grow Your Soul Radio with Jane Matanga. Tune in each month on Transformation Talk Radio as host Jane Matanga explores how to overcome your fears to help you gain the inspiration you need to awaken your path to joy. Learn the way to life mastery and the enlightened path with Grow Your Soul Radio. For more information on Jane Matanga and her work, visit enlightened-path.com.
Stuck in a roundabout of dysfunction? Learn how to speak your truth to power with host Dr. Kathy Aubert. Create real change with smart tools and smart strategies. No frills, no fluff, just life-changing conversations to help get you where you want to be. Extend your reach and become an agent for real change with Kathy Aubert. For more information on Kathy and her work, please visit drkathyaubert.com. That's drkathyaubert.com.
Tune in to the Jen Royster Show, intuitive guidance to inspire your life, each Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific and 11 a.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. This amazing show is an inspirational hour that will take you on an epic metaphysical journey to discover the spiritual approach to life's greatest challenges. Dr. Jen is an internationally known intuitive counselor, spiritual teacher, and energy healer. Call in for intuitive readings and visit JenRoyster.com for more information.
Golden Otter Divinations Radio, where the metaphysical meets the mainstream with Autumn Seibel. Tune in the first Friday every month at 9 a.m. Pacific as Autumn, educator, health coach, and medium, explores metaphysical and mainstream strategies on how to elevate your level of conscious living. Draw in the abundance that is yours by divine right. For more information about working with Autumn, visit goldenotter.us. That's golden like the precious metal and otter like the precious animal.us.
Welcome back to Empowerment Radio. Isn't it hard when you lose an animal, especially a companion that you have had for years and years, and all of a sudden it's time to say goodbye? And isn't it really difficult to reconcile with all these deep emotions and the loss and that feeling of what's going on with me? Will I ever be normal again? Can I ever have room in my heart again for another animal? Sometimes the loss of an animal, is my guest, Judy Helm Wright, who is a grief coach, a pet grief coach, and many other things, but a pet grief coach. And like she said before, sometimes losing a pet can bring up more emotions and can bring up more grief than losing a human. And as we talked just before the break, this has to do with that feeling of being unconditionally loved and accepted, no matter how you feel, no matter how many days you haven't showered, no matter what's going on with you, your pet still somehow has the capacity to accept you. How many humans can really say the same about themselves? That they are able to love and accept in that unconditional way. Now, if you have any questions or any stories about your grief and pets and would like to have support or maybe share something that is helping others, call in at 800-930-2819. Again, that's 800-930-2819. Now, before the break, Judy, we talked about animals and emotions. And I want to ask you, how do you see the emotional depth of an animal? Do they really, in your experience, feel like we would say a human feels love?
Yes. The unequivocal answer is yes. And I have to tell you, one of the questions that you brought up was the emotions that animals feel. And animals grieve. Right now, we have Rosie, who is an Icelandic shepherd, and she's 13. She's getting ready to go across the Rainbow Bridge. And then we have a little white Yorkie mix called Focus. She was supposed to sit on my lap and help me focus, but she has ADD or something. Just, it's all over. But the reality is, when Rosie passes, or when we make that decision, like your father did, that to ease her suffering, and she passes, Focus will grieve very much. She will look for her. She will try to find her. She will be confused. She will be very anxious. She will have anxiety for some time. One of the things, if it's possible to have your dog die at home with you, and certainly held in your arms or surrounded by love, which is my daughter's dog just had that. And I said, isn't that amazing? Isn't that what all of us want, is to be surrounded by love as we make that passing? But focus needs to be there. She needs to see the body. She needs to, in her mind, she will walk around the body. She will touch it. She will know that the spirit has left Rosie. And then it will be easier for her to accept that. But when we say, or when people say to me, well, dogs don't have emotions. Yeah, they do. They do. They get anxious. When we're traveling, we were just mentioning going to Sedona. When they see us bring out our little suitcases, they both run to the door. Like, don't leave us. You're not leaving us. You've left us before and you're not leaving us. So that's a signal to them that, hey, they're going somewhere. Either we're going with them or we're not. And as you mentioned in your introduction, Sid would get anxious. He would get depressed when he had to go in the car. It was like, no, I don't want to. I have memories of what happens when I get in that car. And so animals do feel, they do understand a lot of the words that you say. And some people say, well, they're just getting the tone of voice when you say sit or stay.
Right.
But I think they really understand that. They understand that you're the alpha dog and you're working with them, and hopefully they know that they are loved. But they will grieve. They will.
Now, that brings up the question about, when you have to put an animal down, is it better for the companion to be present when that happened or afterwards?
Yes, it is better to have that happen when they are put down. And a lot of people will have the vet come to their home or even in the car. They will go to be in the car, hold their pet, and the other pet they'll be able to see that pet, that their companion, in this instance, Focus will be able to tell that Rosie's spirit is gone. But it will help her deal with that more. It's much just like humans. Humans need, they don't need a funeral for the person that died. That person's already on their next great adventure. But they need some closure, something they need to have some sort of a ceremony or some sort of a tribute, something that will say that chapter in my book is done.
Right.
There, I will always have those memories, always, always, always. But that particular chapter is done. I cannot make it come back. I can make the memories come back, but I can't make the pet or that person come back.
No, I mean, obviously you're a dog person. Now, I would say I'm a cat person, but it's certainly true for cats as well. Because we had some stray cats that we took care of, and one of them got ill, and we took her in, and eventually, unfortunately, we had to put her down because she had cancer. But the other cat never really saw that dead body. And for 3-4 months, this cat was looking for her buddy, looking for and crying. And it was much harder than when we had before animals that actually saw the dead body. So I completely agree. Right. And we can relate to this too, because if we lose an animal because it runs away, it's much harder for us to reconcile, to maybe at some point give up the hope than when we know it's done. It's complete that life. So that makes complete sense.
Yeah, I like to think of it as our book of life. Each chapter is a section of our life, and we always have that. We always have that to refer back to, and we'll always have the memories. I mean, look how many years you had Sid. How many years ago Sid was euthanized, and yet you still remember him fondly, and you remember the situation around him and around that whole thing. So yeah, you never forget him. You just remember him fondly.
Now, what do you do? Let's say there's someone who had a beautiful relationship with her dog and really feels like this was, in many ways, the best friend, the companion. Right. Now that dog is dying or is getting older, and that person prepares her or himself already for the. Is that really something that you recommend to already think about the grieving while the animal is still alive, to prepare oneself? Is there such a thing, or is it better to enjoy the time that we have to the fullest and then deal with the loss as it's happened?
It's thanks for asking that. There's actually a term, and it's called anticipatory grief. And we're kind of going through that with Rosie right now. Her muzzle's all gray. She's got gray throughout her fur. When she rolls over for us to scratch her belly, it's all gray. And we know that she is coming to that period when she will die. And we grieve her death, and we think, okay, how will we function after this, or how will we get by? So that is called anticipatory grief. And it's something like in humans, if you have a loved one that has a terminal disease, you're going to grieve before they die. And sometimes what happens is when they do die, you feel relief. You feel guilty for feeling relief, but it's a relief that they no longer have to suffer. They no longer have to, be in pain. And so I know you deal a lot with anxiety, and people do get anxious before their pet, and just know that it's called anticipatory grief, and it's normal. But
is there a way to do it in a more maybe productive way, in a more healthy way, in a way that actually really prepares you rather than torments you?
Well, I think that for us, once again, I like the analogy of a book. And you just remember them as they were younger, and you comfort them and your companionship to them. And know that they were sent to you for a particular reason. Their spirit united with yours and became very close. I personally believe that animals do go to heaven. And if there is a heaven, I'm waiting for all of the animals to be there. And I can't remember what psychic, George someone, said that in heaven, when children die, they're met by puppies and little kittens and little lambs, because that will they will go through the tunnel. They will go towards that, where they would not go if there were these strangers, a great grandfather. They're not going to go to them. So little children are met with small animals. I love that idea. I think it's great.
Well, now, what do you do with someone who doesn't have any spiritual inclination, doesn't believe in heaven? How can you help them in their grieving process? That's something I want to ask you after the break. And the other thing I'm wondering is, when you do feel there is a void that this loss leaves behind, and you really suffer from this void, how can you deal with it? Do you just look at it like at the Grand Canyon? Do you fill it as quickly as possible? What's the best way to deal with that void? All of those things and more when we come back.
Has your buzz for life buzzed off? Feeling ignored, invisible, and wondering if this is really all there is? The years go by faster as we gain momentum. You're halfway there. Are you gathering speed or puttering out? Hit your stride for the liberating half of life. Comfortable in your skin? You can do better than that. Tune in to Discovering You Again Radio every fourth Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific as host Susan Axelrod encourages listeners to decide what they want, get inspired to action, and face challenges head-on. Host Susan Axelrod pulls no punches, encouraging you to grab the brass ring and soar. For more information about Susan, go to www.whatwillyourlegacybe.com.
Learn to live in the light and unveil the authentic you with A Time of Healing Radio with me, Feliciana, on transformationtalkradio.com. Tune in every third Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific as I help listeners understand sacred fusion energy and how to connect to the spirit that fuels the very life we live. Explore the journey of spiritual transcendence and ultimately discover the path to peace, love, purpose, and wholeness. For more information, visit atimeofhealing.com.
Goddess-like shamanic healer Bree Gibbs guides us through the ascending worlds, bringing forth knowledge and truth. As a light creator, she is here to provide new information needed at this time in our evolution. Join Bree as she shares messages from guides, spirits, ascended masters, goddesses, and more. Tune in Thursdays at 3 p.m. Pacific for the Dr. Bree Show, The Goddess Emergence, and live the authentic life.
Dream on, fly high, and live adventurously on The Laura Meeks Show. Tune in each month on Transformation Talk Radio as host Laura Meeks guides you in finding your unique gifts and bringing them to life. As a certified life coach, speaker, and veteran bomber pilot for the U.S. Air Force, Laura knows how to follow a dream. She is ready to support you so you can dream on, fly high, and live adventurously. For more information on Laura and her work, visit flyhighliving.com.
People often ask, what does it mean to thrive? On Thrive by Jen Radio, it means body confidence, mind fulfillment, and soul synchronicity. Create synchronicity with God and learn as Jen shares action steps and real stories that will inspire you to be unstoppable in fulfilling your purpose. Tune in live each Monday at 8 a.m. Pacific on transformationtalkradio.com and visit jenniferzellup.com to thrive with Jen.
Welcome back to Empowerment Radio. Pet grief. The loss of your best friend is our topic today. And I'm talking with Judy Helm, Wright, who is a pet grief coach. And before the break, we just talked about the void. If there is a big void inside of you that the animal leaves, how do you deal with it? Do you look at it? Do you get another animal as fast as possible? What about the feelings that are saying, well, I feel like I betray my cat, my dog, my horse, or whatever. When I'm getting another animal right away, it feels like I'm going to forget the beloved. And so I need to sit in this pain longer to honor more the relationship. What do you advise here?
Well, thanks for asking, because this is a really important part, whether you're spiritual or not. I ask clients to write the story of Sid, or write a letter to Sid, telling him how much he meant to your family, how much you enjoyed this, how funny it was the day that he buried a bone and then somebody tried to mow the lawn and he got all upset. That the little funny stories really witness what he meant to your life. And that when I work with people, I'll say, tell me your story. Tell me the story of how you got the dog. Tell me the story of all these things. And I'm typing as I'm listening. And so then I send it to them and I say, fill in the blanks. But there's always these funny stories. There's always humorous things. There's always touching things. That written word stands as a witness to the love and companionship that you had. I had one client who simply could not go back to her apartment. She was a single woman, had her dog was everything. She worked from home. Her dog, unlike Focus, would sit on her lap. And so she couldn't go back. She was staying in hotels and with friends. And so we talked about writing out the story of her dog, and she could do that. And every day add new things, put pictures in. And I helped her build a tribute book to her dog. And then every day she would go into her apartment for 20 minutes, and then 40 minutes, and then an hour. So that eventually, and she said, well, what do I do with these toys? And what do I do with this? And I said, you keep them. You keep them. And that doesn't mean that you necessarily give them to another dog when you get them, but you might. And I know the question came up was, how soon do I get another one?
Right.
I think your spirit, your whatever it is, will tell you when it's the right time. And I also think that we are drawn towards certain animals. There are some animals, if you were to go to the rescue place right now, there are some cats that you think, yeah, and there's some cats that you think, okay, you're going home with me. There's some sort of a connection. Whether some people think it's a spiritual one or not, there's some sort of connection with a certain animal. And you just bond. And so you'll know when it's time to get another one.
But that concern that you betray the one that just left, is this really something that we have to even consider? This is a form of emotional abandonment. I should still sit in this grief for at least 6 months because my beloved animal deserves it. Or are we actually tormenting ourselves? Let's say you feel like after a week, I just miss this, little creature in the house. I want to go and find another animal, but then there comes the guilt. Now, is that guilt really just showing that we are callous, that we are already wanting to have another animal? Or is it just also okay for us to accept that we have, again, as you said, closed that one chapter, and we are ready to open another chapter, and it doesn't mean that we are forgetting the old chapter. We are just ready to write a new one. What would you say to people? Are they callous when they want to have a new animal right away, or is it just their way of processing?
Okay, so have you, no, they're not callous, but have you ever known someone who was married? My husband and I have been married 55 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that great? I know. And we still really love each other. We have lots of fun together. But we enjoy marriage. There's Dwayne, there's Judy, and there's marriage. We enjoy the things of marriage. Should I die, I don't doubt that he would say, I really liked being married. That was a good relationship. And he would find someone else. Not to replace me, but to... that institution of marriage. The same thing with animals. You love having an animal. That doesn't mean that you're betraying that one. But I have to tell you that writing out their story is very powerful. It's very, very powerful. It's in that writing you're saying, I'll never forget you. I'm immortalizing you right here. I'll never forget this. So even if I have another companion, because I like animals in my house, I'm comfortable with a dog. That it's fun for me to have a dog to walk with. So it's much like the institution of marriage. Some people, when their spouse dies, they think, yeah, I like being married. Right. Others think, no, that would be betraying my love for her. And so I'll stumble along lonely and sad and whiny and anxious. That isn't healthy for either one of us, either a dog or a mate. It's better.
If you would die, you probably wouldn't want your husband to stumble along alone just to honor you.
No. Okay. I would want him to find someone that could go dancing with him, could do the same things that we did, the things that he enjoyed as a couple. Yeah, I would want that.
Well, and that's what I think about animals. If animals are, which I believe, unconditionally loving us, there's certainly no jealousy when we are opening our heart to another animal. They're actually just happy for us. But, again, for all of those of you that don't really have any spiritual beliefs or inclinations, just go to the refrigerator and get a glass of milk. But I want to ask you for a moment, Judy. You wrote about this beautiful rainbow bridge and the things that you tell your clients about where animals go. So what are your beliefs about this? Is this, like an animal heaven where they go? What experiences do you have? Did ever animals, once they died, show up in your dreams again? Tell your stories. What would you like to share about that?
Well, it's interesting because some people say death or passing on or whatever. And I always consider it, because I do believe that maybe it's parallel lives. I don't know. I do believe that there is an afterlife. And I have had proof of that because I have seen unseen things. But I always say they're off on their next great adventure. So when my Facebook friends say, oh, my dad died and I'm so sad, I say, oh, he will have so much fun on his next great adventure. And that's how I feel about animals. They're with humans, we talk about moving into the next place. Some people call it heaven. Some people just call it moving on. I call it the next great adventure. And so there's this poem in the little brochure that I have. And I want to make sure that people know that if they write to me at Judy H. Wright at Gmail, and in the subject line, write brochure or pamphlet or something, I will mail them this. I need their physical address, and I'll mail them a copy of this, which really goes into detail.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And yeah,
And what is that poem? Share this poem. Now you started talking about it.
Okay. It's called There is a Bridge Connecting Heaven and Earth. It's called the Rainbow Bridge because of its many colors. Just this side of the Rainbow Bridge is a land of meadows, hills, and valleys, all of it covered with lush green grass. When a beloved pet dies, the pet goes to this lovely land. There's always food and water and warm spring weather. There, the old and frail animals are young again. Those who are maimed are made whole once more. They play all day with each other, content and comfortable. There's only one thing missing, you. They are not with that special person who loved them on earth. So each day they run and play until the day comes when one suddenly stops and looks up. Then the nose twitches, the ears are up, the eyes are staring. You have been seen. And the one suddenly runs from the group. You take him or her in your arms and embrace. Your face is kissed again and again and again. And you look once more into the eyes of your trusting pet. Then together, you will cross the Rainbow Bridge, never again to be separated.
Well, that's comforting in itself. Just that thought of, yes, we're going to reunite again across the bridge. Beautiful poem. And when we come back, we'll talk more about if it gets easier, because you had a lot of animals. I had a lot of animals in my life. If it gets easier, the grief, or if it always stays hard, and what else we can do once we go through this process. So stay tuned. And again, if you have any questions, call in 800-930-2819.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show, Talk Radio to Thrive By. I am so thrilled to be talking to all of you. We have got Talk Radio for all of us. Are you ready and willing and able to accept all of the abundance you can muster up in your life? Check us out at drpatshow.com, transformationtalkradio.com, transformationradio.fm. Oh my goodness.
Learn and explore fascinating and practical uses of essential oils, how to use them, and how they can enhance your everyday life. The Oil Lounge was founded by 3 remarkable women with fascinating stories about how essential oils changed their lives. Tina and Laura from The Karmic Path have joined forces to educate the masses in the benefits of Young Living essential oils. For more information, visit theoillounge.com.
Tune in to Lucid Planet Radio with Dr. Kelly Neff. This hit show will illuminate your senses and empower you beyond your daily stressors and hardships. Renowned psychologist and author Dr. Kelly will captivate you with far-reaching topics and amazing guests as you wake to the greatest version of yourself. Learn to tap into your intuitions, think critically about our world, heal emotional and psychological wounds, and follow your passions to live your dreams. The Lucid Planet. Welcome home. Visit lucidplanetradio.com for more information.
To find answers to life's questions, you need to look within yourself. Dr. Glenna Rice brings your questionable conversations on Transformation Talk Radio each month. Tune in each month for insight into how you can live up to your full potential. Dr. Glenna is a physical therapist, certified Access Consciousness, and Access Body Class facilitator. How does it get any better than this? For more information on Dr. Glenna Rice and her work, visit glennarice.com.
Are you feeling stuck in unhealthy habits, toxic relationships, or low self-esteem? Do you crave a healthy relationship filled with inspiration? You might just be on the verge of attracting your soulmate. Tune in each month to The Laura Richer Show, where dating coach Laura Richer and co-host matchmaker Peggy Bennett share tools for using your dating breakdown for a relationship breakthrough. For more information, visit richerhealinghypnosis.com.
Living Lighter Radio with Jason and Patricia. We have an ecosystem approach to your life. Tune in weekly every Monday at 1 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio as we, Jason and Patricia, discuss what's truly holding you back. We offer you the tools you need to reach your goals and at the same time be living lighter. For more information about Living Lighter, visit www.livinglighter.org.
Welcome back to Empowerment Radio. We talked about grieving and animal grief and how animals can also be such a beautiful enrichment in our lives that I do believe sometimes we don't appreciate enough. So anyone who has an animal out there listening to the show, just take a moment to really have gratitude and appreciation for this companion. Animals are, yes, maybe they feel like they want a lot. They bark, they want food, they climb on your lap, but it's so much love and so much healing they give you. My wife was sick for a week now with the flu, and there is this little healer cat that just knows exactly what's going on. As soon as, there is a little sadness or someone doesn't feel good, that cat is there and doesn't move. And we had such a cat when I grew up, or actually later also in life, where my father passed, and he was bedridden for about a month. And there was a cat that laid next to him every day and was just not moving, and unless it had to, but most of the time it just was his companion and was giving him really comfort because he knew that he will pass. But I think also he was scared at times, and just having this cat by him, and he could reach out his hand and he could touch her fur and pet a little bit, and it just gave him really such a soothing experience. Now, the interesting thing was that the cat, one day before he died, actually left. Almost like, my job is done. Mm-hmm. And that night he died. So it was, for me, a beautiful testimony to how much our animals actually are tuned in with us and how much they are giving to us. So it's not only when we lose them that we should really honor them, but we need to honor them as long as we have them and really be grateful for them. But Judy, what I wanted to ask you is about grief and if it gets easier when you lose animals. And sometimes people say, it was so hard, I cannot do this again. Is that really true, or do we become more skilled in the loss and in the grieving?
I think we become more skilled. And I think that one of the things that I want to talk about is that as humans, we would do well to study how our animals react, how they comfort. That cat comforted your father, and it was an unconditional comfort, and it was also just being there. It didn't have to do anything, just being there. And I think when we look at how you had mentioned how you got a new horse and how the other horses worked him into the group. And if we can model our behavior after the animals, we'll all be so much better off. The grief does get better, but it's always there. And once again, I want to tell your listeners, if you will write to Judy H. Wright at Gmail and put brochure or death of a pet or something in the subject line so I know who it's from, I'll mail you one of these. And this kind of goes into detail on what grief to expect, how long it will last, when to get a new pet, all of the questions that you have. I'd love to share that with your listeners.
And is that a hard copy or is it a PDF that they get?
I could send either one. I'd be more than happy to just put this in a little envelope and send it to them, or I'll send them a PDF.
Excellent.
I'll do anything that they want, or they can call me and I will work with them as a pet grief coach. It usually takes about 3 sessions, about a week apart, to really have someone, me, stand as a witness to their anxiety, to their grief, and to their depression, and help them with tools to certainly not overcome that grief, but to put it into a proper perspective in their life so that they can go on.
And how can they find you? Do you have a website?
I do. It's Judy Helm Wright. Let's see, I think it's judyhelmwright.com or artichokepress.com. I don't know. Look on Facebook, Judy Helm Wright, and ask to be my friend. I'd love to have you be my friends.
Yeah, and once they find you, they can set up a time to talk. And
absolutely. I'd love to help them through this grieving process. Because, grief is part of life. We live, we die, and life goes on. So, but sometimes we need a little help in that transition.
But that's one thing that I find is so important about also what we just talked about, helping animals, helping ourselves with the grief of losing an animal, and in general, just facing the grieving process more consciously. That since it is such a normal part of life, it is really good to start acknowledging it, thinking about it, embracing it early on, not just being in denial and feeling like, well, I don't want to think about losing anyone because it's too scary or too hard. Because it's in those moments when we really fall into this abyss of the pain and the anxiety and not knowing what to do. So there isn't really any better time to just prepare yourself of knowing, yes, at some point I will deal with this, and this is right now how I want to really approach the grieving process as the present moment. And I think this is something that we can do with the beloved humans, the beloved animals, even with ourselves. We can even help people that love us dearly to share with them how we want to be grieved of. Mm-hmm. This is something that I certainly loved what you said about your husband, that you want him not to sit around and bemoan you for too long, but you want him to have another companion, another adventure.
Sure.
And if you never talk about it, then you certainly, let your partner also there in the unknown.
That's right. And you say, as you are anticipatory grief, as you are in anticipatory grief, and knowing like our Rosie has a gray muzzle and is very, very old, we tell her how much we love her. We tell her what memories we will always have of her. And we just build new memories with her. But we love the idea of having animals in our home. That doesn't mean that Rosie isn't special or Focus isn't special. It just means that we are the type of people who love animals.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom on grieving. And I know there is so much more we could talk about. So please send an email and to Judy so that you get this brochure, which I have. It's really wonderful and a great support in that time of loss. Well, thank you, Judy, for being here. And thank you for tuning in and listening. And until next time on Empowerment Radio, goodbye.
You've been listening to Empowerment Radio with Dr. Friedman Schaub. Join Dr. Friedman every first and third Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, as he addresses some of the most prevailing challenges of our daily lives. To learn more about how Dr. Friedman's personal breakthrough program can help you overcome fear, anxiety, and low self-esteem, visit thefearandanxietysolution.com.